to the second episode of Swearing Session. So if you haven't seen the first episode, it's on No Future Singles. So I'll put a link to that down in the description if you haven't seen that. But that kind of explains what this channel is and how this channel is going to go. So if you haven't seen that, like I said, I'll put a link to it. For this video, we're going to go over the albums, compilations, and we're also going to talk about some just general oddities that No Future put out, so like split releases, and there's some exclusive foreign releases from other countries. So with that, I guess we'll just get started here. So this is the first album that No Future put out. This is Blitz's debut album. So this was released in October of 1982. It was pressed in 4 countries, the UK on just No Future, and then there was a Dutch issue that was licensed to Roadrunner Records. There was also a New Zealand press, and that was licensed to Music World Records. Germany was licensed to Blow Up. Finland was licensed to Poco Records. Japan was licensed to VAP, and Spain was licensed to Victoria Records. So this record was pressed in a lot of different countries, and this was not only their flagship band, but this really was the first record that actually saw release outside of the UK en masse. So this is the very first press, very first UK press. So you can see it has yellow labels. It's just a basic black vinyl. Early copies of this did come with an insert, which mine is missing. Again, it's sort of like the 7-inch inserts. They weren't in every copy, and the insert is actually quite rare nowadays. So if you have a copy with an insert, you're pretty lucky to have that. Yeah, I mean, just iconic cover art, iconic band. So this actually was released in October, and it was released just following, or actually just prior to their first tour. So here is actually their first tour. There's your GBH, the Destructors, and Abrasive Wheels. This tour actually saw some serious rifts starting to form in the band. So this tour only lasted, I think, 4 dates, and I've seen different reasons why the tour was canceled. A lot of I think Nidge and Burning Britain says that there was too much violence at the shows, so they canceled the remainder of the tour. I think it was after the 4th date or the 3rd date maybe. But I've also seen that they were very low ticket sales, and that's why they canceled it. So maybe they kind of, over the years, people make it out to be a little cooler than it was. But these are all very, very big venues, and just for this type of music, maybe they could fill smaller halls, but some of these venues were just too big. So this tour didn't really work out, and after this tour, Blitz would kind of fragment, and we talked about that in the singles video. But yeah, on this, Tim Harris he's right there. He produced this record, and after this tour, Mackie would leave the band, and Tim would become his replacement. So we go more in depth into what happened with Blitz later on in the other videos. So yeah, this has been reissued a number of times over the years. In 1989, they did a green and a black version of this, and you can tell that one because on the back of that, right up here, there will be a barcode, and it also mentions Cherry Red Records, who by that time had purchased the back catalog of No Future and was reissuing some stuff. So that was 1989, and then more recently, Puke and Vomit released this in its original form. So you can find it basically how it is here, and I believe it comes with a cool poster and stuff. So we're not going to talk about those here, but we are going to talk about going forward in this video, we're going to talk about reissues that add something new to the release. So anything that's just a basic reissue with the same exact tracks, we're not going to talk about, but we are going to talk about stuff that, you know, like adds the singles and or compilation tracks. So this was released in 2015 on Let Them Eat Vinyl Records, and it's a 4-disc collection on white vinyl. So here you can see that. So this has the entire album, or it's supposed to have the entire album. The singles, it has it has the first single, the second single, and the third single, and then it also has compilation tracks, and it includes that rare version of Voice of a Generation, which we talked about in the other video. But man, they fucked up with this record big time. This is actually a copy of the original insert. So this would have been an original inner sleeve that came with the original press, and they just made it the inside of the gatefold on this. So that's cool that you get, you know, you can kind of see that original lyric insert there. But how they fucked up with this record was, so, well, in my opinion, they fucked up multiple ways. So they changed the actual track listing on this record. So rather than having it just be the original album as the first 2 sides and then all the bonus tracks on the second record, they actually split it up so that the entire album plays over 3 sides, which, like, I don't understand why they would do that. It makes no sense. Yeah, it was stupid to arrange the tracks. I guess they tried to even the number of tracks out, or the time maybe between all 4 sides. But in my opinion, if you're going to do a reissue like this with bonus tracks on a 4-disc set, the original album should be in its original form, right? I feel differently if it's only 1 disc, but if it's 2 discs like this anyway, you know, why would now side B starts with the Lou Reed cover like that? That's not the original one. That was the last side, the last song on side 1. So it kind of breaks up the flow of how the original album was, which I don't like that at all. And what I really don't like is that this record actually is missing the song Scream, which is one of my favorite songs on this record. It has Your Revolution twice. So they really screwed this press up. And the fact that it was the same song twice in a row, you know, I can understand maybe if whoever was doing this, they don't really know the back catalog, and that, you know, throughout the whole thing there were a couple songs screwed up, but there were 2 songs, or there was 1 song missing and 1 song twice, like back to back on this. So that just tells me that no one listened to the test press at all before this came out. Now maybe that's just my copy, but there's only 1 version of this, and I'm pretty sure they're all like that. So I have a love-hate relationship with this label, and we're going to talk about this label, Let Them Eat Vinyl, a couple more times in this video, and sometimes they do good, but this one they do bad. It's got a lot of the songs, but man, the fact that it's missing Scream, I don't know, that's really not good. Okay, so anyways, on to number 2. So the second LP is Channel 3, I've Got a Gun. This was released also in October of 1982. There's only 1 original pressing of this, and this is not really an original release. It's similar to the I've Got a Gun EP, where this was a reissue of a record that had already been released in America. This is similar, only this is a compilation of their first album, and which is right here, The Fear of Life. This was on Posh Boy, just like their first EP was. So it's a compilation of this and the other 7-inch that was on No Future. So this is a cool release. It's again missing the 1 song that they took off of the first EP to release the I've Got a Gun 7-inch. So I guess they really didn't like that song Waiting that they took off of the other one. But this is a really good just collection or cross section of both those releases. And yeah, I really like this record. I listen to it a lot. The cover is great too. So there was only 1 pressing of this, but this was reissued by Get Back records out of Italy in the 2000s at some point. Maybe mid-2000s they released it. So there's not really, again, much to say about this, as it's technically a reissue compilation type record, but, and again, the only American band that was featured on No Future. Okay. On to number 3. So number 3, another classic. So this is the debut album from Peter and the Test Tube Babies. This was released in October 1982. Or, I'm sorry, this was released in December 1982. This was pressed in 4 countries. The UK. There was actually 3 variations of this. There was 2 different black variations, and then there was a green vinyl variation of this. I just have the regular black one. I'll show it in a minute, but No Future would do a lot of green vinyl, so most of their rare versions of their records are on green vinyl for whatever reason. I guess they just like green. Okay, so aside from the UK, there was also the Dutch pressing, which was also on Roadrunner. And then there was a New Zealand version, again on Music World, and Finland again on Polka. So this is a just absolutely classic record. It's actually a live record, which a lot of people don't know, but this was done live, and in Burning Britain, I think Peter mentions they just did it on the cheap. And this one comes with a lyric insert, and I believe this insert was with all of them. So it's not like the Blitz one where it was very rare and it just has some good humorous newspaper editions of, you know, punks causing trouble, and as they do, and some pictures of everyone on the back. Yeah, I mean, just an iconic cover photo. Yeah, this is just on black vinyl, and has this nice colored labels here to match the cover. There is actually 2 identical represses of, almost identical represses of this that came out in an unknown year, and they're of unknown origin. One has DMM in the runouts, so direct metal mastering, so that was repressed at some point, probably in the late 80s or early 90s, I'm not sure. And then there's another one that has a white spine instead of like this one. You could see that the spine is green on this one. So that's the original pressing. Interesting side note about the cover photo is Peter's wearing a Soldiers of Destruction shirt, who, you see these shirts all over the place, but that band actually never put out a record. They did some cassettes, and the singer Morat, I believe, lives in America now, and Soldiers of Destruction play once in a while, but they never actually put out a record or anything. So yeah, but those shirts were, you see them in a lot of pictures from the period. They're from London, I believe. But yeah, so that is Punk number 3. And I should also mention, the singles all have Oi as the prefix for the catalog numbers, and the LPs all have Punk. So this is Punk 3. All right. So this one was reissued multiple times over the years. Radiation from Italy did it. Jurassic Plastic has done it. And then in 2015, again, like Blitz, Let Them Eat Vinyl did a double disc reissue of this. And this one they actually nailed. So I shit on them in the last one. This one's on blue. I shit on them in the last one a little bit. But this one is actually, they nailed this one. So this has the entire first album. It has all the lyrics in there. It has a little story just about how they recorded it and how the album came about. It also has the singles. It has their first No Future single here, and then it also has their compilation track. So it has their 2 songs from Oi the album, and their 2 songs from Carry On Oi. So this is basically like a one-stop shop for No Future era Peter and Test Tube Babies. And this sounds great. Yeah, it comes with these like inserts that show other releases from the label, and they did a lot of non-punk stuff as well, which, you know, kind of makes me think this label was just sort of, you know, after sales, which is fine. I mean, you know, they got to make money somehow, but there's some of their releases where you're like, wow, they just screwed the pooch, you know, like that Blitz one, man. But this one's good. This one is outstanding. It's good quality and sounds great. So, all right, moving on. So Punk number 4. This is probably in my opinion, the best album that they did. So this is the Partisans debut album, and it was their final release on No Future, and it was also almost the final release as a band. So after their second single, they were so young that they had a lot of trouble getting, you know, to London to play shows because they had to get rides and they didn't have reliable transportation, and they were still in school, some of them, so it was really tough, and they ended up breaking up. But to fulfill contractual obligation with No Future, they went to the studio and they recorded this with the classic lineup. So this was pressed in 4 countries. No Future had 2 variations similar to Peter and Test Tube Baby. So there was the black version and the green version. There was also the Dutch version on Roadrunner. There was the Finland version on Poco, and there was a New Zealand version on Music World. Yeah, this record is just, I mean, seminal. There was no insert that came with this. I have the original owner's name in there. So, shout out to Rudd. So, I mean, just classic punk collage photo on the back. And here's the labels. So after this, the Partisans would actually come back later in this year with a different lineup. Louise would leave the band, and they had Dave Parsons join the band on bass, and he actually would go on to be in Bush later on, which is a little weird, but yeah, so this has recently been repressed in original form by Beat Generation and Puke and Vomit. But Let Them Eat Vinyl also did this one, and this is another one that they nailed. So this is their 2015 reissue. This is actually only a single disc because everything from No Future fit on one LP. So this has the full album, it has the lyrics, it has the pictures of the singles, and the story behind their reissue. And this actually includes their compilation tracks from Carry On Oi. It includes both of their No Future singles and the full album. So this is, and it's all on one disc. So this is a great one. And this is actually really tough to find for some reason. This is actually listed as Police Story, which is a compilation. But this is, for all intents and purposes, a reissue of the first album, you know, with the original layout and everything, just with bonus tracks. So I don't know why it's listed under Discogs in Police Story and not under the first album. This one's on red vinyl. Here, I'll show this. So this is on red vinyl. Yeah, this is a great piece to have because it includes everything that they did on No Future on one record. So very cool to have. Okay, so before we move on, I want to jump back to the original press quick, and I wanted to bring this up because this is one of the only records that there is a bootleg of that's almost identical. And when I say almost identical, I mean, I actually didn't even notice that this was a bootleg. So I originally bought this. This was the first copy of this record I ever bought, and I found it in Sit and Spin Records in Philadelphia, so shout out to them. And as I pulled this out, the owner, Colin, he goes, "Just so you know, that's a bootleg of some kind." And I was like, how is this a bootleg? It's identical to the original press. I mean, look at the label is identical. Everything appears identical. And he said, I don't know, there's something up with the matrix numbers. When he looked at the runouts, it didn't match the original press. So he just sold it as a bootleg. And I was really dubious of it. And I'm like, well, so I did some comparing between these two. The etching is different, but I mean, how many people are going to actually look at the etchings when you're in a record store? So here's the bootleg label, and here's the original label. And I mean, they are spot on. But here's the easiest way that I found. The color's a little different, so I mean, but you know, depending on this is definitely a vintage bootleg, so I mean, depending on how they're worn in over the years, the front cover is almost identical. But on the back cover here, so you can see Andy Leland's face is fully visible on the original press, and it's cut off on this bootleg. So if you ever think you found an original press and you just need a quick way to see if it is, just flip it over. If you can't see Andy's face, then you know it's a bootleg. Now when this came out, I'm not sure. I'm gonna guess late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s maybe, but I mean the material is very, very similar as well. I don't know if we can get these in here, but this is the bootleg on the bottom and the original press on the top. So you can see they're very, very similar with slight differences that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not gonna remember the difference between those two, the spines or the cover, the color difference on the covers. Another good way to tell is on the original runouts, they say Tim's my hero on, I believe, the A side. So that's a good way to tell. And also you can see Louisa's shoulder is cut off here on the bootleg. So I just wanted to mention that because this is like a $50 record, and this is probably, I mean, I think he sold it and Colin sold it for $20. So I mean, I'm sure people fall for this one all the time because it's, like I said, it's almost spot on. So I just wanted to throw that in there to help anyone who's still hunting for an original copy. Yeah. So check your copies at home, guys. Okay, so with that being said, we'll move on to our punk number 5. So punk number 5 is Red Alert's debut album, We've Got the Power. So this was pressed in 4 countries. It was pressed in the UK, Scandinavia on Missler, in Finland also on Polka, which is weird that they did a Scandinavian press and a Finland press because they both very near each other, so I don't know why they did that, but whatever. And then they did another New Zealand press of this on Music World. This is an outstanding record. And this, they've all kind of switched. So the guys who were skinheads on the first record are kind of like more, have grown their hair out. And Steve, who was a punk on the first record, is dressed like a skinhead. So I think that's just typical of the 80s, and between punks and skins, they would just kind of, you know, jump between the cults as they saw fit. This one comes with an insert here. This one's really cool because it actually mentions all their friends in here and put pictures of them, so that's pretty cool. And then it's got lyrics on the other side. Yeah, so this record is just outstanding. This one's on Red Labels. So this was reissued in the 90s by Captain Oi, and more recently Radiation did a reissue of this, and Daily Records also did a reissue of this, but they're just the original form. There's no bonus tracks. There's no, as far as I've been able to see, there hasn't been a reissue of this done with like the singles tracks on it, but they did do the Red Alert singles collection. So if you watch the other video, I talk about that singles collection. So between this and that singles collection, it's pretty much everything that they did in the early 80s. Okay, so that is number 5, and that was June of 1983. So July of 1983 saw this record. This was the debut and only album by Attak. This was July of 83. This was pressed in 4 countries. So there was a UK version, there was a Netherlands version on Roadrunner, the Finnish version on Poco, and the New Zealand press on Music World. So this differs in that they added a second guitarist on this record, Woody. So that's him on the end there. He was added only for this, and I don't believe they actually played a show after this came out. So this lineup never actually played a show. They just recorded this album, and by this time, Attak was getting a little heavy metal influence. I mean, the cover even is a little new wave of British heavy metal looking. They said they were listening to a lot of, you know, Tank and, you know, that kind of Motorhead and just that era of British heavy metal. And actually, I have an interesting thing here. So I have this little thing I've collected. There's some just clippings from sounds and stuff like that, but actually here I have the original ad that Attak placed looking for an additional guitarist, which Woody would answer and join the band. So that's kind of cool. I like to collect stuff like this, little clippings from sounds and Melody Maker and flyers and whatnot. And there's a lot of No Future on this, Blitz and Channel 3 Partisans samples. So just thought I'd throw that in there. So anyways, back to Attak. Attak, there's never been a full collection on vinyl of Attak with all their singles and all the tracks from the album for some reason. And they should all fit. I mean, they didn't have that many songs. There was this reissue, which was done by Get Back out of Italy in the mid-2000s, I think. And I mean, again, I don't know. Some of these reissues is really questionable cover choices. But this actually does include, it doesn't include the full 7-inch Murder in the Subway or Today's Generation. I think it's missing a song off both of them. And it also doesn't have their compilation track from Carry On Oi, or Oi Oi That's Your Lot, I think it was on. So their compilation track and part of their 7 inches are missing off this, but this is the closest thing you'll find to a collection of this band with a terrible cover. So yeah. So this band actually would kind of come back to the forefront for a minute there. When Blitz reformed in the 90s, they actually reformed with Gary Bassnett on vocals. So Gary Bassnett was the singer and guitar player of Attak. Blitz reformed in, I think, 90, and they did this record, Blitz the Killing Dream. So this has Midge, Gary Bassnett, and I believe Gary Sumner from Blitzkrieg, actually. So there's a lot of No Future history on this record. It's a little weird. It's not as good as early Blitz, obviously. This was on Skunks. I think this is a more recent bootleg. But some of these songs are on here, like Overdrive was on the Rose of Victory 7-inch. That's the instrumental that they did. And they did some other songs in here. I'm not sure which ones they were, but some of these songs were actually original Blitz recording, or Blitz songs that were written back in the early 80s with the original lineup and were just never recorded. And some of these songs, it sounds unfinished. It sounds like an unfinished demo, and there's like a weird echoey thing going on. But you can just hear, like, especially the title track, like as soon as the lead guitar comes in, you're like, holy shit, that's a Blitz song. It's just unmistakable. So this is kind of a cool record. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's just an interesting record to have. Unfortunately, Gary Bassnett passed away a few years ago, so rest in peace, Gary. But your legacy lives on in this music, so. Alright. So the next one is another Channel 3 record. This is Punk 7, After the Lights Go Out, by Channel 3. And this was released in August of 1983. So there was only 2 presses of this. There was the US version that was also on Posh Boy, and then there was this UK No Future. I'm assuming the US press is the original one, and then this probably was released later. It was reissued by Get Back and Jurassic Plastic in the 2000s sometime. So this is a good one, actually. I really like this band. Again, the only American band on No Futures have black labels. So this had a lyric insert with it. It's actually the first time you saw, the English punks probably saw pictures of the guys in the band, because all the other records had no pictures or lyrics or anything with them. So yeah, this has a cool aesthetic to it. I like the way they put this one together. So this is Punk 7. This is the 7th LP, and this would actually be the final full LP of No Future in August 1983. There's still 2 more records in the catalog numbers for LPs. So there's there's this one, Punk 8. So this is a compilation, Angels with Dirty Faces. This is, it's kind of, this is a weird record a little bit. It's a compilation, but it has a really cool cover. There's lots of good pictures in here, some of which I've never seen anywhere else before. Like there's this cool picture of these skinheads up here that I've never seen that picture anywhere else. There's just some good pictures of Blitz and the Partisans, Attak, you know, all the main bands on the label, the Violators down here. This is an interesting record. This was UK only. They only did this one press of this. So the way that they split this up was they did their early singles on the back side, or on the front, on side 1. So it has the first Blitz, it has the entire debut Partisan single, it has the first Peter and Test Tube Babies, and then it has 1 Red Alert song. And then the other side is just kind of yanked from other various releases on No Future. It says it's not a best of, it's just supposed to be because some of their early singles were deleted, and they thought it would be easier to put it out as this, which, I mean, it's missing a bunch of songs, so I don't agree with that, but yeah, this is a weird record, and it also has a list of stuff they still have available. So I think this was kind of to get the word out, to get people to buy up their back catalog. So this was released in 1984. I couldn't find a release month. This is near the end of No Future. So I think Chris Berry was probably just trying to clear out the rest of what he had in stock, and he figured he could do it with this, like, you know, he says not greatest hits, but this sampler record, and try to move some of his last stock out of. So here's the label. This compilation is weird. It doesn't flow very well because it's sort of like EPs on the first side, and there's a lot of the same bands on it too. It's not a really good cross section of the label. So the last LP is another compilation, but this one is a much better compilation as far as No Future Records goes. This has a lot more, is a much better cross section of all the bands that appeared throughout the years on the label. So this was, again, it was only released in the UK, and this has I love the cover on this. It has a little blurb about the history of No Future. And this was sort of like the farewell, and this, I could say, this is probably more of the best of release than the other one. So this actually was released in UK only, and it was on black vinyl, which is this version. There was also a red vinyl version, or like a red pink. So that's the only not green colored vinyl release that No Future did, was this one. And that's technically the last No Future release, I believe, is this one. So this came out, I believe, after the label folded. I think he did this. So this was released in November of 1984. So this was long after their final release had come out, and I think this was kind of just to wrap everything up. And I think it does a good job of that. I've put this on a lot, actually, because it's a great choice of tracks. Okay, so now we're in compilations, so we're gonna touch on, there's 2 foreign exclusive compilations that were done. So this is the Finland No Future compilation on Poco Records. This was released in 1982. There was only one pressing of this, and it includes songs from the first 5 No Future releases, including A Country Fit for Heroes. So this one is tougher to find. You can see it has pictures of the Partisans, Blitz, and Red Alert on the back, and then it has this weird, the lyrics of Never Surrender, and they just sort of fizzle out into scribbles at the bottom. I'm not sure what was up with that, but this has a great cross-section. This has some really good songs that were on, like the Distortion song that was on A Country Fit for Heroes, and it also has the Blitzkrieg song that was on A Country Fit for Heroes. So this is a really good, sort of like the last one. I really like the songs they chose to put on this. So that's the red Poco label. And similar labels would appear on the other versions of the No Future records that Poco did. And this has exclusive cover artwork too. That's like called the Punk War artwork. That'd be cool on a shirt, actually. So yeah, that's the Finland No Future compilation. Okay, so with that, there's one more foreign compilation that was exclusive. This one is a very odd release. So this was done by Music World in New Zealand in 1982. So this was done later in the year by the time the label had released more records. And this is the first, I believe it's from the 1st to the 15th release is represented on here. And yeah, this is just really, really odd. There's yeah, it's a little, like the cover is a little weird. Punk Revival, Punk Now. Okay, the yellow No Future label there. Again, it's a good cross-section of songs that had been out by that time. It's really funny on the bottom here. It says, other great albums you might enjoy. And it's just random, not punk records. You know, like Mozart and, yeah, it's just New Zealand Army Band. Drive Time Variety, I don't know. It's odd. Unfortunately, this copy I have is basically mint, but it's warped. And it's unplayable, which there's really no reason I would ever listen to this. I kind of just bought it to complete the full collection. I mean, I have these songs 10 Ways to Sunday and other releases, so yeah. It's an interesting one. And this was, I think, the last No Future release I was able to find. I think I got it on eBay. And yeah, it said it was mint condition and it'd show up, and it was in mint condition, but warped and unplayable. Oh well. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to A Country Fit for Heroes, Volume 1. So in the first video, we kind of touched on this, but I really wanted to go over this compilation as a whole and the bands that were featured on it. So if you want to see about the labels and the pressing information, you can watch the singles, because this is technically in the singles catalog. This is Oi number 3. So on this, there was bands we already talked about that would go on to do other records. So Blitzkrieg, we did their records in the other video. Violators, we did in the other video. The Samples, we did in the other video. Attak, Crux, we did in the other video. So now I'm going to go a little deeper into this, and we'll talk about some of these more obscure bands and some not obscure bands that are on this one. So this came out in '82, and the idea was to put out some of the demo tapes they had been getting that they just didn't have the resources to put out as full records, so they put out this compilation to just get these bands some exposure. So on the first side, the first band that didn't end up on No Future was Hostile Youth. So Hostile Youth, they never did any official releases. They had a demo. You can find the demo on YouTube if you're interested. But I don't know if they had any other compilation appearances either. This was pretty much the height of their exposure as a band, was this. So their song Fight Back. It's a great song. One Way System, on the other hand, they went on to do a lot of things. So I'm not going to show their whole discography here. These are their first 2 singles. This first one was on Beat the System, which was a subdivision of Light Beat Records. They did a number of really good second wave punk records at this time. So they also put out bands like Uproar, Chaotic Youth, actually, who we're going to talk about in a minute. This is their second album, so by this time they were picked up by Anagram, who did the remainder of their 80s releases. And this band, between this 7-inch and when they were signed by Anagram, they improved drastically. I mean, this is like a night and day difference. And they would go on to do some of the best UK 82 records that came out. As far as the singles go, this came out recently. This, I think, is on Radiation. This is Give Us a Feature, early singles and demos. This is really good. This has everything you need on here. It's got those 2 7-inches we talked about, plus their other ones that were on Anagram. It comes with a good poster. Yeah, this is a good release. And here's actually their first album. This was on Anagram. All Systems Go. This is just classic record. This is up there with your GBHs and your Discharges and all those just incredible bands. Yeah, this comes with a lyric insert here. Great band that went on, and they broke up in I should do actually just a whole video on this band because they did a lot of records in the 80s, but they broke up in 1984 and they went away for a while, and then in the early 90s they reformed, and they still play to this day. They had some lineup changes and there's some other guys in the band now, but yeah, they still do a lot. I saw them a couple years ago and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Okay, so that's One Way System. Okay, so that's side one. So the rest of the bands on side one ended up on No Future, and we talked about them already. So on side two, we have Protest. Protest only did one record. So they did one 7-inch in 1983, which is right here. Vinyl Overload. This was more of an anarcho band. So this band is more, it's your fold open cover, but there's nothing inside. This is more in line with like Blitzkrieg than, you know, One Way System. This is actually the second press from 1984. The original press is identical, but it has a black cover, so the green cover is the repress. Yeah. It's a good record too. Okay, so next is Distortion. So Distortion never did a record back in the day. They were from Carlisle. They did a 4-track demo in 1981, which is on YouTube. They didn't do any further records in the 1980s, but they did morph into a band called Delinquents of Society, and they did, I think, 3 demos. They did a number of demos which are all on YouTube, and they are outstanding. That's another band that between Distortion and DOS, they really improved, and DOS is great and those demos are awesome, and it would be really cool to see the Distortion demos and those cassettes put on like an LP. That would be really cool if someone ever did that. But Distortion actually did reform in the 1990s, and they did a ton of records. So if you go on Discogs and look up Distortion, there's a ton of there's like multiple albums and a ton of, like, you know, a lot of singles and stuff. But those are all from the 90s. I think there's only one original guy. I could be wrong on that, but yeah. So interesting band with actually a lot of history, but not too much output at that time. So next is Pseudo Sadist. They were an anarcho band. They were actually from Wales. They only did one demo tape in 1981, which this song came off of. Okay, and Chaotic Youth, the last band. So this was a band from Scotland, and they would actually end up on Beat the System with One Way System. And this is the most expensive, rarest Beat the System record. Just absolutely outstanding Scottish punk. Yeah, this is an outstanding record, and this one is pretty tough to find. Great band. So for Chaotic Youth, there's 2 other records that were released more recently. So this is done by Vomito Punk, who we talked about in the last video. They do a lot of really good reissues and collections and stuff. So this is a reissue slash collection. This includes their song from A Country Fit for Heroes. It includes that EP I just showed. And it also includes their one track that they had on another compilation. It's got a cool insert here. Yeah, and it's got the whole story of the band. It has one song that they did on the Total Anarchy compilation, which was the Beat the System, I guess, equivalent of A Country Fit for Heroes. So this is a great thing to have. And this came out recently. This is actually an LP that is their entire 81 demo. So this is the song that was on here, Who's Bomb. This is the full demo that Attak Youth did. And it's got a cool picture, a little history. Yeah, this actually is very limited, and I think this is going to be worth a lot of money one day. I think there's only like 200 copies of this or something like that. It's really limited for what it is. But it's really cool to have, and it's cool to hear this band kind of also mature as they go through. So, all right, that is the full deep dive on A Country Fit for Heroes Volume 1. So now we'll go into A Country Fit for Heroes Volume 2, which is a lot more interesting because a lot of those bands, well, most of those bands didn't really go on to have much fame. So here is A Country Fit for Heroes Volume 2, which again we touched on the pressing variations and stuff in the other video. But this is the back here, and we'll go over all these bands just like we did with the other one. So the first band is another Scottish band, Patrol. So Patrol, they did multiple demos in the 80s. Some of the songs from those demos have been repressed on various 7-inches. So this one is actually really tough to find. This is on Intimidation Records. This came out in, I don't remember, 2003, around that time period. It's numbered, so I have one of the last copies actually, so that's cool. It's got a little Intimidation insert here. I don't think this label is active anymore, but they also did an Actives collection. So the UK82 band Actives, they did a good collection LP of their demos. So this was like in the 2000s this came out. These two are more recent, and these are on this label Love Child, which they do some really cool stuff as far as obscure UK82, UK79 records. And the sleeves are very DIY paper, which I think is kind of cool actually. They're very DIY style labels, and they do, for anyone that's really deep into this UK82 stuff, they do some cool other records that are worth checking out. So these two came out in the past 2 years, I think both of these came out. So this is some more ways to hear Patrol. It'd be cool to have an LP with everything that they did on here. So that's Patrol. Alright, so the next band on here is Mania. Mania, they only did one cassette. This is Mania right here. That's them. So they're half punk, half skinhead band. They did one cassette that was on Rot Records. I think they did that in 1982 that came out. They were from Sheffield, so they were from the same town as Mama. Their cassette was Madness and Outrage. That can be found on YouTube. They were on other compilations, PAX and rock compilations. And there's no collection of their demos on vinyl or anything like that. Unfortunately, the demo is great. The cassette that they did is great. I love it. Okay, so after Mania, there's Government Lies. Government Lies were from Bedford, and they only did one demo. That's them right there. Government Lies. They only did one demo from 1982. It's on YouTube if you want to hear it, but again, similar to Mania, it's never been put on vinyl. There's no reissues or anything with them. The next band is On Parole. So On Parole, that's On Parole right there. They were a skinhead band from Scotland. They did two demos. They had another song on a Rising Free sampler cassette. There's a bootleg single-sided 7-inch that just has the song that's on here, so I don't know why someone did that. It'd be cool if someone did the entire demo on a record, because I like them a lot too. Just classic Skinhead Oi from that time. Okay, so, and then the last band on side one is Criminal Damage. So Criminal Damage is interesting. They only did one demo in the 80s, but they recently reformed and they're putting out new music and playing shows now, which I find to be pretty interesting. So that's them. I don't know how many of the band is, and when I say they reformed, I mean like in the past year they reformed and they're playing. So this is Criminal Damage right here. I don't know how many of the original members of this are still in it or anything like that. Yeah, I'm not sure. They have one song on here. I think the original demo was 3 songs. So I think they only have 3 songs from the 80s. Okay, so the next band, the first band on side 2 is ABH. Now this is a controversial band. They did 2 demos originally. I think in 82 and 83 they did 2 demos. They had 2 songs on compilation, or they had 3 songs on compilations, 2 on this. They also had 1 song on the Oi of Sex in 1984. So where's ABH? They're right here. ABH would actually, they would end up having another song in 1984 would appear on the White Noise compilation 7-inch with Screwdriver, Brutal Attack, and the Diehards. So obviously, you know, that was scandalous at the time, and that was the last thing that they ever did. They were from Suffolk. They did a split CD with Subculture in the 90s, Captain Oi did, and that is how I found out about them. And regardless of what you think about what they should have or shouldn't have been on, I mean, these guys wrote some great songs. All the songs that they did are incredible. There was 2 bootleg 7-inches that were put out, so this is one of them. I don't have the other one. They are numbered here. There's another one which I need to track down. That comes with a little insert too. So this has one of the demos, and I believe the other 7-inch has the other demo. So this has the 2 songs that are on here, Country Boy Rocker and Wanna Riot, and then it also has Don't Mess With the SAS, which was a song that was on the Oi of Sex in 1984. So this is kind of like a compilation collection, and the other one has more demos. More recently, this came out. So this is the ABH Oi collection. This is pretty much everything they did besides the 1 song that's on the This Is White Noise compilation. And this also has some new songs that they recorded. I believe side B is all new recordings from 2017 or thereabouts, whenever this came out. And this has lyrics and pictures and all that good stuff. So yeah, this band is, like I said, regardless of what you think about politics or whatever, you know, this is some of the finest boy punk that was ever done at that time. I mean, just great band. Okay, so ABH. The next band is actually my favorite band on this, and that is Cadaverous Clan. So Cadaverous Clan is interesting for a number of reasons, but the main reason they're interesting is that the guitar player Damian Thompson played in a lot of other stuff during this time, around and simultaneously as this band. So they never did anything else in the 80s. They did 2 demos in the early 80s. They were from Staffordshire. This is a retrospective collection. That's them right there. So this has their 2 demos. Both their demos were from 1982. And this was done by Vomito Punk, who did a number of the other collections that we were talking about. So that's Damian Thompson right there. He was in a lot of really, really good bands from this period. So here's 2 other bands he was in. The Verukers, he played on this record, which is, I mean, just both of these, and then Sacrilege, which is another. I think both of these records are topics for another video, but I figured I'd just show them in here because this dude had quite the history at the time of playing in just amazing, amazing bands. I mean, anything this dude touched in the early to mid 80s was incredible. And this collection LP is no different. This is awesome. Front to back, it's great. They do a Ruts cover on here too, that's pretty cool. It's a little darker sounding. So it's a little darker than a lot of that stuff. I wouldn't say it's really impeding on the goth territory, but it's just a little bit, there's a little bit of damned in there, you know. Okay, so moving on from Cadaverous Clan, we're going to talk about Impact. So Impact were another Welsh band. They were from, I don't remember the town they were from in Wales, but they would end up going on to do one 7-inch, which is this, and this is sort of like a cult classic UK82 record, the Point Christmas 7-inch. And this was done on their own Cyanide record label, but it was distributed by the Cartel, which was sort of like a conglomeration of record stores that would all distribute records. So they must have got a distribution deal through that somehow. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is a great record. The B-side, the song Law of the Land on this is one of my favorite UK82 songs ever. It's awesome. So with that, Impact actually had this came out, I'm gonna say 2010, something like that. This is a collection of demos of them, and there's a couple of newer songs on this. But this is actually, this I used to see all the time, and now I guess it's worth a couple bucks because they didn't do many of these. It actually has their letter that they got from No Future that after they sent the demo in, saying like, we're going to include your song on the Country Fit for Heroes Volume 2, and it lists out the other bands that are on there. Although this band, Target, never made it, so that's kind of interesting. There was another band. So yeah, this is a cool compilation to have. This one's just on black, but there's a red version that's even rarer than this. So that's something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye open for these, because like I said, I used to see this all the time, and it's really jumped up in value. So this still might be hiding in record stores for affordable prices. And this was on Anti-Society Records. Yeah, that's a good one to have. Okay, so the last band on this is Intensive Care. And Intensive Care were a band originally from Scotland. They were from Scotland, and they did a couple demos. They ended up moving to London. Well, the singer Ian ended up moving to London, and that's where the singer Ian ended up moving to London, and he basically continued the band there with a lot more demos. They did this single in 1984 on Punishment Block. I think that's their own label. I could be wrong. Yeah, so this was kind of an underrated band for the time. They ended up getting a collection CD on Captain Oi in the 1990s that kind of maybe brought a little more interest back to them. That was from 1984. They did this in 1987. They were on a number of compilations around that time too. They were on a French compilation, which they have there's a version of one of their songs on that French compilation that's unavailable on anything else, which I don't have a copy of that yet. There's the labels. So the singer of this band would end up moving into a different band called Beer Zone, who were fairly popular throughout the 90s and mid-2000s. They did a lot of tours of America, and yeah, so this was his first band. I think Beer Zone probably went a lot further than Intensive Care did, but this is just great classic UK82 stuff. Okay, so that's the last band that's on A Country Fit for Heroes Volume 2. Oh, I forgot one. They also, Vomito did this as well, so this is the demos collection for Intensive Care. There's the end on the back. And this is on like a bone colored vinyl, which I don't like. I'm not a colored vinyl guy. I like black vinyl, especially vinyl like this. It's really tough to see the condition, like if it's got scratches or anything on it. And I try to stick to black vinyl. That's also why I don't have any of the green No Future. I don't care for colored records really. Yeah, so anyways, that's the end of this. And this is the basic information insert. This isn't related to the compilation. These are just the biggest bands on the label, and it has their other releases on the back. Alright, so we're almost done here. There's a couple more records we want to talk about. So, No Future did one split release, and that is of the Peter and Test Tube Babies 7-inch they had on No Future, and there's the Jinx or Zombie Creeping Flesh 7-inch on the other side of this. So it's between Trapper Records, which was Peter and Test Tube Babies bass player. I believe he ran that. And this is just in like a DJ 45 sleeve. This sounds really good because it's 12-inch 45, whereas the original songs in here, Band from the Pubs, Run Like Hell, and Up Your Bum were on 7-inch. So this sounds really good compared to those. Yeah, this is there's another version of this that just has a regular blank sleeve with no center opening. And there's a couple different colors of the label of this. But yeah, this, I don't think this wasn't technically released by No Future. This was just licensed. And I think this was 1983 this came out. So, technically a part of the No Future collection. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about is Skull Records. And Skull Records was the Screaming Dead's label. So, Screaming Dead did one 7-inch, this is their debut 7-inch. So they did this record on their own on Skull Records initially. And then No Future picked them up and they reissued this. If you could see, No Future has their logo right here. So this is the reissue of that first self-release record. So they basically were like the marketing for Skull Records. And you can see also it says No Future Cherry Red down here. So that's their first 7-inch. And again, these guys were the only band on the label that was more goth oriented, you know, and again, think 80s goth, you know, like Bauhaus and, you know, the later Damned, like they were kind of more that direction. And this was the other record that they did, Painted Black, so there's a Rolling Stones cover. And another song called Warriors, but not the Blitz Warriors. And yeah, this was also on No Future. But again, Skull Records, so they just put that one out. As far as Screaming Dead goes, there was one singles collection that they did right here. This one it includes all their singles. This was on Bomb All, and this actually comes with a CD of the album, which you don't really see much. This was like big in the mid-2000s, but this is recent. I think this came out maybe 4 years ago or something. Yeah, it's got the all their releases that are on this with the pictures and everything. And yeah, again, this is an underrated band, and I think maybe they don't really get the credit that they deserve because they didn't really fit in on the label. But I really like this band and their style. Alright, so with that pretty much wraps up the end of the No Future record collection. Hopefully I get a little better at doing these videos as time goes on, because man, I watched the first one and I already want to redo it. So the next video will be on Riot City singles and then Riot City LPs. So I'm pretty much going to do this format for record labels going forward. I have some other ideas in the works. I'll probably do Beat the System records. I have an idea to just do Skinhead Oi records from the 80s. There's a lot of ideas I have floating in my head, so we're going to see where this goes, and whenever I get time to do this and edit it. And yeah, listening to my own voice is just painful, but it's fun to do. So, alright, with that said, hopefully there'll be another video coming soon, and see you next time.